knew I was coming for you, little one. When the kettle jumped into the fire, towels flapped on the hooks, and the dog crept off groaning to the deepest part of the woods. In the hackles of dry brush, a thin laughter started up. Mother scolded the food warm and smooth in the pot, and called you to eat. But I spoke in the cold trees. New one, I have come for you. Child, hide and lie still.
What's up, and welcome everybody to the spooky October Halloween season. I'm not sure if you're ready, but I sure as heck am. This is my first attempt at doing a podcast, and I'm planning on just doing this for October, seeing how it goes, seeing how I like it. But my name is Alex Koska, and I will be your host for this show called Odd Virginia, where I get people just like you who may have had weird experiences and get them to come on and talk about these things on the show. Now, tonight I have got one hell of an interview. This is a person I met this past summer who, as soon as I met her, we started talking about all things weird and paranormal, spooky, and so on and so forth. So, it's a long interview. I'm going to try to keep the intro short. But man, is this just jam-packed with a lot of stuff. I try to edit it for time, but I didn't want to cut out any of those juicy little bits. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce you to Terra. But just real quick before we start, if you've had any experiences of the paranormal, strange, UFO encounters, any sort of cryptids or creatures that you've seen wandering around in the woods, I'm not going to tell you that I think it's true or false. I wasn't there. I can't judge. But here in Odd Virginia,
we're ready to believe you!
Alright, so today on the show, I've got Terra on the line over Discord, and Terra, you have got, I would say, just a wealth of stuff to share.
Just a little.
Yeah, just a little. I met you, God, how long was that ago? Probably a couple months.
I don't know. Yeah.
And right from the get-go, we hit it off with paranormal, cryptozoological, all sorts of weird stuff. And that's kind of how we connected. So you started telling me about some of the personal experiences you've had, and I guarantee you I haven't heard the entirety of it. But I'd like to hear more. So could I get just, first of all, a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, whatever you want to share. Public record.
Gotcha. So, tell me about yourself, work interview style. Okay. No, I'm Terra, and I'm 22. I'm a college student, and I have a dog, and he's pretty cool.
Best friend. And that might come into play a little bit in what we're talking about tonight, because from what I know, the things that you have seen do have some sort of influence over dogs. I wouldn't say control over dogs, but there's a fear factor that dogs seem to pick up on before people do, generally.
For sure.
Yeah, but before we even get into that, because these things started way before you even got your dog, just think back towards your earliest memories of strangeness. Do you have any early childhood kind of things that you could share with us?
Ooh, just ghost stuff in general,
Yeah, anything when it comes to odd circumstances and weird happenings.
Okay, so there was this one time, and I think this is the earliest back that I can remember. I had driven my bicycle into a tree and tried to stop by stepping my foot in a gopher hole, so I had seriously messed up my ankle. And I wasn't able to get up to my bedroom that was on the second floor, so I had to sleep on the couch for a little while. And I think it was the first night that I was staying on the couch. Everybody had gone to bed already. And I think I had fallen asleep, but I had woken back up. And I remember I looked across the living room for some reason, and I saw what I can only describe as like a diamond or a rhombus or something. It was glowing white and like 4 feet off the ground. And it was like floating closer, and the closer it got, the more it transformed. And it eventually became like this, I don't know, 5'6" something woman in this long flowing dress, and her hair was tied back in like a slicked back ponytail. And it was so weird because I covered myself with a blanket because I was scared. Um, and you could still see like her glowing form through the blanket, and she laid on top of me and like wrapped her like arms like around me, and you could feel the warmth of like an actual being there, but not the weight. And it was the weirdest thing. And I remember I just started screaming for my grandma because her room was the closest, and she came out and the lady disappeared. And I never saw her again. But that wasn't the only thing that happened while I was on the couch. I remember.
Oh, hold on a second, because that is absolutely crazy. I've never heard of a geometric shape turning into the form of a ghostly person.
It was like an orb, but a diamond.
Yeah, so that's not an orb. It's a completely different shape.
Same concept, different shape.
Okay, so how big would you say that the diamond shape was before it turned into a woman?
Size of a torso, I guess.
Okay. So maybe about like 2.5 feet in length, 2 feet or so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ish.
And was it like a young, beautiful woman, or is it like some kind of old haggard woman that it turned into?
I don't know. Young, I guess. She didn't look old, but she didn't look like a teenager, you know. So
sort of like a middle aged.
Yeah.
And was she like scary, or was she kind of reassuring? Okay.
And like I said, she wrapped her arms, and it was warm. It wasn't cold, and there weren't any bad feelings other than I was a kid and there's a ghost touching me, and what the heck is this, you know? So,
okay, yeah. But looking back on it, what do you think was going on there? Like, what was? Because obviously there was a reason this happened to you. What do you think that might have been?
Comfort, I guess, would be my best guess. Because I was.
Were you going through a lot at the time?
More than likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were gonna go on to something else. What else did you have?
So, I mean, there was a bunch of stuff that happened while I was spending the time on the couch and not able to go up to my room.
And so this is like within this one healing period you had, which was how long? Maybe a week at the most, maybe?
A week or two. Yeah, I had my ankle was messed up. Yeah, it doesn't have the best luck. Specifically that one. It's always that one. It's never the other one. So there was another time that I had a nightmare. I don't remember what the nightmare was anymore. And my mom came out, and she she slept on the first floor, but like all the way on the other side of the house. And she came out, and she was walking me to her bedroom, and it was so weird. We like passed. So the way the house layout was, it's like the living room is all the way on the left, and then there's this little tiny hallway where the stairs upstairs like go up from the center, and then there's like this sitting room, and then her bedroom. So we were going through like the little hallway, and I had a foster brother at the time that my mom was fostering. His name is Quentin, and as we passed the stairs, and this was like 2 o'clock in the morning, he was just sitting there, and his eyes were like bloodshot, and he wasn't talking, and he wasn't moving. And my mom was like, "Quentin, what are you doing?" And he didn't say anything, and he just kept staring. I feel like there's more to that, but I don't necessarily remember it. But it was weird. I think a little bit of conversation happened on my mom's part, and then he just silently got up and like turned around and like slowly walked past like the balcony of the stairs into his room. Um, and then we kept walking and we got into her bedroom, and I had gotten her balloons for some procedure that she had gotten, and it was just like a yellow smiley face balloon, except it had like transformed, I guess is the best way to word that, into like this almost clay looking featureless head. Um like if I had to describe it so you could get a picture in your head, think like a bust of the founding fathers. Like it was like clay-ish. So like it still had like a nose and like eye sockets, but they weren't there, and like what looked like a powdered wig. It was
Kind of like Mount Rushmore,
sure.
but with a little bit more showing.
It was insane, and I remember just like screaming because there's this disembodied head, and she turned the lights on and it was gone.
That is incredibly odd. I've never heard of anything like either of these two things you've told us so far. Those are unique experiences for sure.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of weird stuff. Nothing really comes close in description to what you've just said.
There's still one more.
Continue.
So I had given up on sleeping on the couch, and for some reason my child brain thought sleeping on my grandpa's lazy boy would make a difference. So I had switched to the lazy boy, and my mom slept on the couch because I refused to sleep in the living room alone at that point. And I remember waking up and I looked over to like the center of the room. So like the lazy boy was all the way on like the left side of the room against the wall, and the couch was all the way on the right side of the room, and there was a little coffee table in front of the couch, and then a bookshelf next to the couch, a fireplace on the like outside facing wall. So like if you were to walk in and look straight ahead, there's a fireplace, and then a TV in the corner. And I remember I looked over at the coffee table and I saw this green blinking light, and I was like, why is my laptop on? So I kept staring at it, and then like it moved, and it moved to the base of the bookshelf where we had a ton of papers just all over the place because we had so many bills because my grandparents both had cancer at the time. Just like all over the floor, a ton of bills.
You mean like bills that you get in the mail, things you need to pay?
Yeah,
Okay.
bills and other medical documents, and a mess of documents.
So you're not talking about dollar bills?
No, I wish. um, so the light went away, and then this small, creepy dog appeared. It was like a hairless chihuahua looking thing. So he looked like mangy almost.
Mm-hmm.
And he was digging through the papers, like obsessively digging through the papers. So I just stared at him. I felt like I couldn't look away.
And just for the record, your grandparents did not have a chihuahua.
No, we had a black lab.
That's a very, very different type of dog.
Yes. No cats either at the time, so nothing that could have looked similar. Just a black dog and a blue and gold macaw. But it kept digging, and I kept staring at it. And then it stopped, and it like walked towards me, and then stared at me, and then walked past the lazy boy like off into like the other room. And that was that. And I told my mom about it in the morning, and she looked through the papers, and she found like this important medical document that she had been looking for my grandma's like treatment.
And do you believe that the mangy chihuahua helped her find that particular document?
I don't know. I think so because she wouldn't have looked through that if that hadn't happened, and it was digging pretty obsessively. Like, I wish there was a way to.
Kind of like a dog bearing a bone when they're digging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sort of like that.
So perhaps it was a good omen.
Maybe. So it was a very creepy dog.
Maybe a neutral omen. Who knows? Yeah, it sounds as creepy as it can get. Just about. I mean, you can't get more creepy than Chihuahua.
Yes.
You know, when people describe La Chupacabra in Mexico or other areas that have experiences with that sort of thing, I always imagine a Chihuahua.
Really?
Every time.
But they're so small.
Yeah, they're also scary. They're just weird
That's
dogs.
fair. I don't know. I've met like 2 cute chihuahuas.
No, I mean, in all reality, Chihuahuas are dogs, and therefore they are worthy of all the affection. But they're probably the lowest on the totem pole.
That's fair.
Anyway, that's interesting. I've never heard any of those stories from you before, so
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that
I know.
with me. And I've heard a lot from you. Moving forward, what I kind of wanted to get to was some of your experiences. First of all, with the sleep paralysis and just the weird stuff within your sleeping consciousness, because you do have a lot of strange things there. And I'm not sure that every experience that you've told me about is necessarily sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And sleep paralysis isn't a catch-all term for these weird nightly experiences. Hypnagogic hallucinations, I think, is probably the closest thing that people have come up with for
Big words.
some sort of explanation as to these entities we see at night. But people see them in their waking life as well. And I'd like for you to shed a little bit of light on as to, you know, what you have seen and what goes on with these entities that seem to visit you sometimes.
So I guess the big reason why I'm not entirely convinced it's sleep paralysis is because it started at a certain location, and like, I don't know. I used to call it sleep paralysis because I didn't know what else to call it.
Right. Well, for reference to anyone who's listening, sleep paralysis is a state that your body induces when you are dreaming. You're in REM sleep, which is the dreaming state, and your body shuts off all motor function, or your brain shuts off all motor function to your body in order to keep you from enacting your dreams. And there are times in which people actually wake up while this process is happening and they cannot move. And they believe that they're still dreaming oftentimes and see weird things, but also see the real world around them. For example, I've had this experience before where I've woken up in my bed, unable to move, and I saw people in my window, but I live on the second floor. So how could there be people looking through my window when I'm on the second floor?
Extra tall people.
Right. These are very long boys. That's a little bit of context there. Continue with your story there.
Okay, so I was in a psychiatric hospital for a little while, just for anxiety. And it happened there for the first time. And that's why I'm almost convinced it's something that's attached to me versus sleep paralysis. Besides the fact that I can move when it happens.
So you're not paralyzed?
Exactly.
Well, that's totally different then.
Yeah. So I didn't know what to call it, and that was just the first term that had any sort of
this is what they
similarity.
would say is a hypnagogic hallucination, which is a waking dream.
Right. But anyway, so the first time it happened, I think it was the second or third night there. And I woke up, or at least I think I woke up, and there was this black shape of a person at the end of my bed, and they crawled onto the foot of the bed and crawled up towards me, and I started screaming and like trying to move away. At which point that woke up my two roommates that were also staying in that room with me in the hospital, and they ran over to the side of the bed and it disappeared. And they asked, "Hey, like, are you okay? What happened?" And I remember like muttering, just a hallucination, and like going back to sleep. um, but that was the first time it happened, and after that, I don't think it happened again there. Um, but it would happen off and on, in periods of high stress or change for a little while. So I know it happened in between me being like 13 and college, but I don't remember a lot of that gap, um, for other reasons.
Yeah,
But
due to an accident you had.
yeah. um, so the next time that I really vividly remember is I was in my dorm at Sweetbriar, and I woke up and my nose was bleeding, and I looked over in the middle of the room and it was just like standing in the middle of the room.
Sweetbriar is a college in Virginia, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in southern, I think, technically, Virginia.
And so you woke up and this shadow man was standing there.
Yeah. And my nose was bleeding. um I screamed and I woke up my roommate, and then I had to explain all that. um and then it was really active there for a little while, so much to the point that it stopped bothering me almost. Like I would sleep and it would walk around my room and I'd ignore it. Didn't happen for a while again. I went to New York with my roommate Alexis, and it showed up in like the corner of the room, and I started attacking it, or at least what I thought was attacking it. So like in my head I was just like punching it, and what Alexis saw is like I was just like grabbing things off the floor and like throwing it at the corner. Um and then I haven't seen it since, but I have seen other things. Like I was laying in my bed at home where I am now, and I had fallen asleep holding Kovu's paw, and I woke up and there was this.
And Kovu is the name of your dog.
Yes, that is my dog, my pup. I looked to the foot of my bed, and there's this tan clay looking form of a man, but really short, like standing there, and I didn't feel scared, but I came back to like reality because my dog started screaming because I was gripping his paw too hard. And then I was like super focused on my dog and making sure he was okay. And it disappeared, and yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, as far as the shadow people are concerned that you've seen in your sleep, you said you were able to move when you saw these things.
Yeah.
And you had alerted your roommates at the time that something was going on?
What do you mean? Like,
I mean, you were able to rouse them and say, hey.
Well, because I was screaming.
Right. And so they didn't see it?
Not that I know of, no.
No, I don't have any real rationalization as to why they wouldn't have seen the thing.
Right.
But you saw it and it was real. It was a full 3D entity that looked like a silhouette, basically.
Not even transparent.
Yeah, and I mean, this is very common in sleep paralysis. The odd thing about your story is that you weren't paralyzed.
Yeah.
That's the real weird factor. And you know, people have seen these things in waking life. I've heard of stories of people seeing these same sorts of entities while they're just out hiking. But that's very rare. Normally, it's I'm paralyzed, I can't move, and this thing's crawling on top of me and choking me.
Right.
And in your case, it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
It's
really
just
weird.
It's just interesting. It's just interesting. I can't see I have any rhyme or reason to it. Do you have any sort of kind of like gut instinct or feeling as to what that is?
Nope. Never have.
I mean,
I
it's
just know I don't like it.
it's tough to say.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like I'm dreaming. I'll say that much, especially with how easy it is for me to like snap back.
Yeah, I can't say it felt like I was dreaming when I was having a sleep paralysis experience either. And this was a time in my life where I was just very depressed. My wife had just left me and I was drinking a lot. And I felt like I was awake and I was seeing people at my window. But as I told you before, I was a second story. And these looked like regular sized people just standing on nothing looking through my window.
Floating people.
Very strange. Yeah, floaty people. Floaty boys. Anyway, that is another chapter of your life that no one can really explain.
Yeah. Very weird.
So that was in your pretty recent years, I'd say.
Relatively. Yeah.
And things have just gotten weirder since, haven't they?
As they do.
So, is there anything that's happened between then and the time that your mom has moved into her current home, which is a place that I visited a number of times, and you know, searched out these weird experiences on my own because I'm interested in these things that you've told me about. Is there something that's happened between then and basically what is now, or
oh my God, so much.
should we just jump to that?
We can jump if you want, because I could.
Yeah, you could go on all
I
day.
could talk
I do know you.
like 6 hours about this kind of stuff. So
okay, so tell me about the things that have happened at the Tom's Brook, Virginia area.
So what? Like, how do you?
So this is a property that backs up to the George Washington National Forest in Tom's Brook. And it is just rife with absolute craziness. And I've been there. I've spent the night several times. I've explored it. And I want to say that more has happened based on your experiences, because you've had some crazy stuff happen. And unfortunately, I've only gotten a bit, just a small bit of it. So I'd like you to let me know, first of all, when it was that you guys moved there, how long you've been in this place, and first started noticing that things were going on.
Right. We moved back in like December of 2018, I think it was. I don't exactly remember when activity really started to happen, or like when we registered it as activity, but
so was it like an incremental build up, like, oh, something might be happening, oh, something's definitely happening kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there were unexplainable things that happened before it just really started to go down. But I didn't really live there for the first year because I was in college. I mean, I guess the first set of stuff would be the Bigfoot stuff, but I don't know if you want me to talk about that.
Well, I think that's the thing I'm most interested in personally, but that's not necessarily the most interesting thing, because you've told me other things that seem more prevalent than the Bigfoot activity. But if that's what you first noticed, that's what we should start with. Yeah.
Okay, because that was the first thing. There used to be, before I moved out to Sweetbriar, what I noticed was what sounded like tornado sirens. At times there shouldn't be tornado sirens. And I say tornado sirens because I didn't have any other word to describe the noise. But we lived like 45 minutes in any direction from anything close, and you can't hear anything.
Yeah, no,
from
Tom's
neighboring
Brook
towns.
is out there. It is middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and there's not a tornado siren near, and
I'm sure there's
that's
not.
why I tried to tell my mom, and she was like, no, they're just testing tornado sirens. But it was always in the evening or at night, and it was usually during or right before a storm. So not times I would think you would test a tornado siren. And then I went to Sweetbriar, and my mom told me about this shape that she saw running past the front door that made all the dogs go crazy, and she thought it was a bear, but it was too big to be a bear. So she started doing research on like the Bigfoot stuff, and she found these sound clips, and she sent them to me, and she was like, you have to listen to these. So I listened to it, and the chills I got down my spine because it was identical to the siren-y type noise that I heard.
So do you remember the names of the sound clips? Because
No.
there are very famous Sasquatch recordings.
If I find it eventually again, I will send it to you.
We wouldn't be able to match it, but the Ohio Howls are one example of very famous Sasquatch, like just shouts in the distance, kind of a long drawn out ooh kind of thing.
All right, so sorry to interrupt the interview, everyone, but this is me in the present. This is editing mode Alex, and I was able to get in touch with Terra after the interview was over and confirm with her that the sound she was hearing does indeed match up with the Ohio Howls. So I'm going to go ahead and play that audio clip for you. I want to apologize in advance. There is a bit of like environmental static noise going on in the recording, and I try to suppress that as much as I could, but you can only do so much in post-editing. So I'm going to go ahead and play that right now. Take a listen to this. So there's definitely a dog in the foreground, or at least nearby where the recording capturing device, the audio recorder is for this clip. But you can hear way off in the distance that like a long moaning wail, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know what that is exactly. I was a little bit curious as to what tornado sirens sounded like so I could have a basis for comparison. Because I'm just not that familiar with tornado siren sounds. And I was lucky enough to be able to find actual tornado siren recordings from Columbiana County. So now we can actually hear that as a basis of comparison. Same area, tornado sirens. The recording of the Ohio Howls comes courtesy of Matt Moneymaker, who recorded that in 1994 in Columbiana County. That is right along the Ohio River. And the second clip comes to us from a YouTube channel called SRP. This is a recording of, as I said, tornado sirens in Columbiana County. There is a very distinct difference. One we know is a tornado siren. The other is completely up to speculation. So until we find out, we don't know. All right, back to the interview.
But that was, I guess, the first start of stuff. And then I'm sure there was more that happened in the gap, but I don't want to talk your ear off about Bigfoot.
I kind of wish you would.
I mean,
There was a footprint.
there was a footprint. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
I can talk about the footprint. I was on one of my breaks from college, so I was back home, and I went to go pick up my friend Katie from the Richmond airport. So I came back really late at night, and the river that you have to cross to get to the house was about to flood. So I had to park my car on the other side, and we had to walk back. And as we're walking, right before we get to the bridge, there's this bare footprint, not a bear, but bear, B-A-R-E.
Right, shoeless.
um, just like one footprint right in front of where the bridge starts, and it was huge, like big, not human sized. And
How many inches would you say?
I don't know, a lot.
Probably between like 16 to 19.
Probably it was huge.
Okay.
And I didn't say anything because if I start talking about it, then my friend was going to start talking about it, and then I was just going to creep myself out more. And we had a walk up to the front door. So I pushed it off, and we kept walking. And I thought I saw what almost looked like this big silhouette up by the window, but I brushed it off as being the round pen, even though the round pen is not anywhere near the window. That's what I told myself, and I stuck with that, and I kept walking back to the house. And then the next day, when we went back to campus, Katie and I were walking back from our biology class, and I was like, okay, I have to say something. So I was like, did you see? And then she cut me off, and she was like, you saw the footprint too?
Mm.
And that just, it sent me, because I was like, okay, I wasn't seeing things. Great.
That's confirmation.
Yeah.
If I've ever heard it.
There were a lot of other things that happened to my mom too, like not to my mom, but that she noticed when I wasn't there. Like she talked to the neighbors that are down the road, but also on our side of the river, and they heard like bipedal things stomping on like the patio, and they came out one day, and a deer was just ripped in half.
Oh my god.
Like not eaten, just ripped in half and laying there on their driveway.
You know, that's incredibly common.
Hate that.
When it comes to these creatures, they will dismember any sort of animal. Normally they'll decapitate. And they won't eat it, which is weird because you'd think a creature like this would hunt to survive.
Really creepy.
Very creepy. Yes, I agree.
They had something scratch their dog, which I have my own opinions about that, and the deer. You know that, but
I do.
Yeah. So that was the start of stuff, and then after I moved to where I am now, my mom started having more ghostly stuff. So there was one night that she, for absolutely no reason, she was home alone. It was like probably 10 o'clock at night, just had this urge to go outside and just start taking photos. And you've seen some of the photos where she took photos up, like pointing up at the hayloft and over by the picnic table and over by the round pen and throughout the barn, on the side of the barn. And in nearly every single one of the pictures, there's something. Yeah. But after that, I think that really creeped my mom out, but it's also my mom, so it definitely intrigued her. Yeah. So she wanted to know more, so she kept like looking and prodding, I guess. And there was one time she was walking down the barn aisle, and a ghost, or what I guess is a ghost that we've named Boots since then, was up in the hayloft, and he chased her out of the barn, like not physically, but with fear, because he ran the length of the hayloft, which scared her because there's this heavy stomping up on the hayloft. So she went like sprinting out of the barn, but like the stomping, of course, stopped at the edge of the hayloft. And when she looked up, there was nothing there. And then you can hear Boots all the time. Like he's just walking around up there. He'll slam and move stall doors. And I swear one time I heard that or something else, like talk once recently, because I was walking to go put a bridle away. And there was just this like deep man voice from the other side of the barn that was like, "Don't do it." And I was like, "All right, say less." And I turned around and I walked back out of the barn. But really, it's just a lot of stomping noises and creepy vibes. And yeah, there's the little girl ghost that I saw in the kitchen, and also in that photograph. Do you remember the photograph?
Yeah, I do remember the photograph. I wasn't really convinced by it, though.
It definitely looks like a little girl.
There was definitely something there. There was an object in the frame. I can't say I know what it was.
But did I tell you the story about the little girl in the kitchen?
No, you haven't told me that story.
I think I have. I don't know if you remember, but Alexis and I were both sleeping in like the kitchen area, because there's only one bedroom. It's like a studio apartment next to the barn. And she was on one airbed and I was on another airbed. And she woke me up because she had like sat up straight and was pointing at like the corner where the counters like come together, and just like wheezing. So I wake up and I look over there, and there's this little girl in like this old style like dress. And I didn't feel anything negative. She was just standing there. And like I tried to wake Alexis up to calm her down. I was like wake up. Like, it's okay. And the little girl was just standing there, and Alexis finally like snapped out of it, and I was like, "You just saw a ghost, dude." And she was like, "Oh," and rolled over and went back to sleep. And the little girl disappeared. Again, I didn't feel anything negative. She wasn't glowing in any particular color. She was semi-transparent and gray. But she was there. And the dogs saw her too. The dogs all looked over in that direction.
So what do you think about that? Was that like kind of a residual image, do you think? Or was she trying to interact with you?
So I think it felt like curiosity. Like curiosity. I don't think it was residual, because she was looking at us and like cocking her head. So again, I don't think it was negative. But I think she wanted to know what we were doing.
Hey everybody, I'm interrupting the interview just one more time to say thank you for listening this far in. If you're in this far, that means you're really enjoying it. At least I hope you are. And I wanted to say I am looking to release an episode every Friday in October. And I just looked at the calendar while I'm editing this, and it is the 30th of September right now, which means that tomorrow is October 1st, and that is the first Friday in October. So I've got to get this thing wrapped up and done and put it out tomorrow if I can. It's a race against the clock right now, and I just want to say, if you have a story, anything, big or small, that you would like to talk about and are willing to come onto the show and discuss it with me, I'd love to have you on. So thank you one more time. Just get a hold of me. You guys know how to do that. If you're listening to this, probably only my close friends right now are actually giving this a listen. So go ahead and hit me up on my phone, hit up Facebook Messenger, email me, leave a YouTube comment, whatever you got to do. Just get a hold of me and I'm going to see if I can get you on the show. Thank you so much, and back to the interview. But now we're about to get to the most important part of your weirdness.
Oh boy.
I guess that's the only way we can describe it, is your weirdness. Because you've got a lot of weirdness.
It's not me.
No, it's definitely you. I don't know anyone else has got
Wow.
this. I mean, what is really first up? Because we have your Sasquatch experience, at least the vocalizations that you've experienced before. But then there just becomes a whole new batch of weirdness along with it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's go with the Bigfoot stuff first.
Okay, what do you want to know?
So you did have a footprint on the property in Tom's Brook,
mm-hmm.
and later you saw the being. So tell us about that.
Oh, I pushed that out of my memory. I did see him, didn't I?
You told me about it the day that it happened.
Yeah, with the binoculars.
Yeah.
Sorry, so much has been going on. My memory is all over the place. Yeah, so we noticed that one of our horses was like staring at like one of the sides of the fence where there's a bunch of.
Speaking of which, you guys have a ton of horses out there.
We do, and I love them all.
And by a ton, I literally mean like at least 2,000 pounds worth of horses.
We have 8, but they're all good. So Pops, he's our gray Arabian, was staring at the tree line. I'm like acting kind of flighty, like he was prancing back and forth and like puffing and puffing and acting weird. So I got my mom and we go out with her binoculars and I put them like to where he's staring, and I see like this brown hunched over shape. So I stare at it, and because I'm trying to like make sure it's not a tree, right? And all of a sudden, it just like drops down into a crouch, and I like it jumped out of my skin because hey, that thing just moved. And I look at my mom, and I'm like, I think I just saw Bigfoot, and she's like, what? So she's like, give me the binoculars. So she takes the binoculars, and she looks at it for a little while, and she sees him like stand up and like turn around, like he's trying to like move. Like I think he saw us see him. Because I mean, A, he dropped down into a crouch, and then B, he's like trying to turn around to like walk away. But she saw him too, and then we got Alexis and Chris to look, and they both saw him. And then like we leave because I'm not gonna stand there and look through binoculars for hours. But we go to the front of the barn a little bit later, 10 minutes, and Chris and I are like talking in the front of the barn, and we hear like this like loud ruckus of crunching trees. And it sounded like he ran back up the mountain. Like it was just like this thud 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 crunch. Like he was like, "Oh, they're not looking at like anymore. This is my time to run." It was super. Chris and I just stared at each other, and I was like, "Did you hear that?" And he was like, "Yeah."
And by up the mountain, you mean like where I walked that one day?
Yeah, the trail.
Okay, so he went up that direction.
Yeah, except he was in the right side tree line. But yeah, that was that.
I kind of wish that there was some sort of corroboration I could personally get from that, because I've been up to that property, I've gone up that mountain, I've not seen anything that could tell me that there is a Sasquatch there.
He just doesn't want you to see him, Alex.
Apparently not, and I so want to see it.
Maybe that's the problem.
Well, that is probably the conundrum, because there's a lot of people like me who want to go out and see Sasquatch, who understand that they're there, and just sit and wait, and they don't get it.
And just be like me and accidentally see things you don't want to see.
It's not going to work like that. Well, this brings us to the most important part of your story, which is
all the times that you've seen the Wendigo.
I don't like the word.
I know you don't like the word. I'll call it a pale crawler, which is generally the word we use nowadays anyway. Wendigo's kind of antiquated.
Yeah, that thing.
So this also occurred at Tom's Brook.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your first sighting.
So I was driving home at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I had Alexis in the car with me, and I didn't know what it was the first time I saw it. Kind of glad I didn't. I don't know what my reaction would have been if I did know, but we were driving, and I come around this bend, and I see what I assumed at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm tired and it's dark was the end of a white truck bed, but it didn't have any taillights and it was going really slow. And as I got closer, it became apparent that it was not a truck bed because it had legs and arms and it was walking on all fours across the end of the road and into the trees. I don't like looking back on it, I don't know why. I'm glad it didn't, but I don't know why it didn't stop or look. But it just kept going right into the trees. And as we got past that area, I didn't say anything. And Alexis turns and looks at me and she's like, "Did you see the white thing going across the road too?" And I was like, "Fuck." Yeah, I did. um, so that was the first time I saw it. And I talked to you about that. And I think it was you that suggested.
And I've said that sounds a lot
Yeah.
like a
That's what I'm saying.
Wendigo.
And then I was like, no, that doesn't exist. Like, but then I started looking it up.
And now it's come back.
Yeah.
So tell us about your second encounter with the being.
Well, my second encounter doesn't come up for a while.
Well, you took a
But
picture of it.
Like, well, okay, so it doesn't count as an encounter because I didn't know that I was taking a picture of it.
Right, but you did get a picture of it.
Yeah, so Alexis had wanted me to take a picture of the side of the building because she thought she saw a ghost's face through the window. So I was like, whatever, I'll take a picture. For some reason, we were looking back through the pictures and like, I was like, what is that? Because there was this tall, like, I don't know how tall you would say the round pen is, like, what, 6 feet?
Not even. It's probably about 5
yeah,
feet.
but oh, that feels a little short. It's taller than me.
Yeah, but it's not as tall as I am.
But I don't know how tall you are.
I'm 6'1".
Wow, tall.
So okay,
Anyway,
5.5.
So okay, I can settle for that. But there was this like taller than the round pen, white, lanky shape.
And so we could assume that is the creature, but it could just be. It could be something else.
I don't know. Gives me big that thing vibes.
Same. I feel like that's the thing that we're talking about.
Yeah. So there was that. Hate that.
But that's not the last time you encountered the thing.
No. Which story are you picking for?
Well,
here?
the most recent story that you've told me is the one that's the most interesting.
Yeah. So, didn't happen at my mom's farm. It happened here in a city.
And how far away is that exactly?
45 minutes driving. Yeah. Far enough. So, I went out to walk my dog, and it was like only 8 or 9 p.m. There were still people outside. There was a guy that had walked over the train tracks, and there was a girl that was getting into her car. So, like, it wasn't late. And this was like the only time that I've gone down to the train tracks to walk my dog without my phone. Of course, right?
As it goes.
And he's going pee, and I see movement like in my peripheral. So I look over because I'm like, oh, it's probably a bunny. I should probably figure that out where that is before my dog yanks me towards it. And it wasn't a bunny. I see this thing, and it's white, and it's on all fours. and it's standing there. And I stared at it because I was like, no way. And I know that's like against everything that you're supposed to do, but I did. I stared at it, and it started to like move. It was so gross. It would like almost snake-like in the way that it moved its head and shoulders down and then back up to like look, and then its eyes were glowing amber, like something was reflecting off of them, but there was no headlights coming towards us.
So its eyes were reflecting light that wasn't aimed at it.
So
that means they were just glowing.
Yeah.
Okay, so its eyes were glowing amber.
And I knew what it was. So I was like, no. And it was close. I mean, it was like 7 car lengths away from me. Too close for my liking.
That's extremely close.
Yeah. So I start sprint walking. I yank my dog. I'm like, come on. And I start sprint walking, and he tries like looking over at it, and I'm like, no.
Did he have his tail tucked, or?
I didn't look. I just wanted to walk. I wasn't looking at my dog. I was looking straight ahead. I wanted to leave. So I get up onto my sidewalk in front of my building to the point where I can look past where that little maintenance shed is, because I want to look. I want to see if I actually saw something or if I'm going insane. And it was there, and it was on all fours, and it was walking towards where I had been standing.
No.
And the way that it walks is so gross.
Was it low to the ground, or is it like fully extended?
No, he was like fully extended. It was weird. So that scared me more, and I sprint walked, and I got inside, and I locked the door, and I locked the windows, and I called my mom to tell her. And this is the super weird part. I was resalting the door, and as I was putting the salt down, my phone like completely dropped service, which could be completely coincidental, but it was weird.
All right, so could you describe the walk of the creature?
What do you mean? Okay. Disjointed and wrong. Like its elbows, and
did it feel like it was moving at like kind of a low frame rate?
Yes, you could say that. I don't know. It just felt like it was moving not in a way that a typical animal would move, and it was moving slow.
Okay. I'm just trying to get like a very specific image. So I've heard descriptions of this creature before, but I just want to see if I can get a specific image from you as well to see if they match. You know,
it felt incorrect to look at. Like the anatomy felt wrong. So like if you were to get on all fours right now, your head is going to point down towards the floor naturally. Its head was up.
Okay.
Like it was looking straight ahead of it, and
as if that's its build, like it's on all fours and its head goes forward.
Yeah. And its knees and elbows were outwards and bending. Like I don't know how to describe it. It didn't bend like a other 4-legged animal.
Did it have kind of a spider crawl sort of thing going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good way to describe it. I mean, and it was exactly what I saw crossing the road, so I know it's the same thing.
All right, so it's back legs. Did you see what those look like?
Looked like legs.
Looks like a human leg.
Like human legs,
okay.
Yeah. Human legs, human arms.
Because sometimes you hear about these things and their back legs are bent backwards, kind of like a dog's legs.
No, it looked like human legs. It's like bending like a human, but square. I wish I could draw you a picture.
You can.
I can't draw.
I can't either.
It was. Ugh.
Ugh.
Oof.
Yeah, I really want to get more on this creature, and yeah, so if you have anything else happen, let us know in the future.
Will do. You already know I will.
All right, thank you so much.
absolutely horrifying what Terra has been through. I am so glad I've never seen much of anything like anything she just described through that hour. Now we're running a little over time. This is supposed to be an hour-long episode, and we are currently over an hour, but I wanted to add real quick. I've been to this Tom's Brook farm, as I've mentioned in the interview, and I have just, kind of searched and waited for these things that she's described, see if I could see anything similar. And trust me, she's told me a lot more than what we've covered here today. So we did spend a night in that haunted barn. The horses are out in the field at night for the summer, and we set up a tent in one of the horse stalls. I don't have anything definitive, but I can say that barn gets really noisy at night. You may say it is the sound of the beams settling, but there was definitely a lot of noise going on there at night that isn't usually going on. And the one thing that really, really caught my attention was when something started banging on the barn door. Now, she also mentioned the creature going up towards, climbing up the mountain, and I did hike up that mountain for a ways. We spent another night out in the field just seeing if we could hear anything. I brought my roommate along, and my roommate and I took actually a moonlit hike up that mountain. And boy, it was beautiful, but just nothing happened. There wasn't anything really going on. Now, I'm not calling Terra a liar. There's no reason I would have to call her a liar. She's always been very truthful with me. But yeah, I guess it just wasn't in my cards for anything like that to happen to me there. So unfortunate. I was really hoping. But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. The music that you've heard produced in this episode was all produced by me here in my basement. And the poem you heard at the beginning of the show is a poem entitled Windigo by Louise Erdridge. All right, so that's it. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and have a good night.